final show of the tour.
Yeah.
We got to talk to you in the lead up to the tour, but that's like it never really happened, so we can start all again. How has Monolith been versus what you expected of it?
I didn't have much. It's been so long since we've been here, I didn't really know what to expect.
Sure.
I knew that I'd want to have fun, clearly. I mean, being taken away from my home. But
so far away from you.
Yeah, but it's been so good. Like, yesterday was amazing.
Melbourne yesterday?
Yeah, we had
cool.
such a great time. Just a great show. It's just like one of those, I think yesterday will definitely go in like my top 5 shows I've played in my career. Like, we had moments like that.
Big
Yeah, it
deal.
was
Damn.
awesome. Like, I think the band was on fire. I think the reaction was great. Everything about it, you couldn't ask for anything more. I'm hoping tonight's a repeat.
That's
I really do.
definitely put the pressure on Sydney.
Yeah, man.
Sydney.
It was
Turn
awesome.
Is it nice after so long coming back and getting that feeling and seeing that reaction? And look, as big fans for you guys, hopefully that's a little bit of a fuck. We need to get back here more often.
Right. I think so. We're already talking about what the strategies are for like next year, and with the new record coming, and like how do we, what's a good package to come back with and like do something, proper COHEED, so yeah, for sure.
It's funny that talking to so many people that are COHEED fans and being like, they're playing the album in full this time round. I think it's a really cool thing to come back after so long away, come back with like a nostalgia,
Yeah.
and be like, here's one for the fans, and then come back and be able to kind of go, well, the response is there, people are still keen for us, let's come back with new music.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the thing is like, Good Apollo is a very nuanced record, and to have the reaction we did yesterday to songs that we don't play all that often, even in the States, it just felt pretty special, and like, it really made us think about like, oh wow, this is, it has been a long time since we've been here. So,
we know. We've been...
Yeah. Well, I realized, I was like, it wasn't just like the pandemic, and we realized, Josh's situation with his heart, all of these things that just like kind of happened, and we're like, oh, that's why it's really been so long.
Yeah.
So
Fingers crossed now we're in the clear and you can come back around. We can drag you away from home again and
Right,
get you back
yeah.
out here.
And how do you go this far into the career as well, being away from home? Like, it's so far away from home. Surely with technology getting, better, and FaceTime and all that sort of stuff, it makes things a little bit easier.
Oh, yeah, no, it definitely makes it easier. It's just like, for me, my son doesn't really mess with FaceTime all that much. Not because we decided, I mean, he has a gadget and does his thing, and but when it's like, when you want to have that time, it's just not as great as it is, and at least it's something, in some points it just doesn't translate,
Yeah.
Does it often make it a little bit like, if you have a call or a FaceTime, does it make it a little bit harder sometimes? Does it kind of give you that, fuck, I'm really missing them sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, dude, like the other day I was sitting in the hotel room in Brisbane, and I had my iPad open to the ADT, to the camera, to the security camera at the front of the house, and I'm sitting there drinking a coffee, like pretending I'm on my front porch. Like I'm,
It's warmer though than you would be at home.
Oh, absolutely. But I love the fall in New York. So it was a little hard, but I've had such a good time here. Like, it's bittersweet because it's like, yeah, we do get pulled away from the comforts of home after such an extensive tour in the States, but to come here and get this reception, I mean, it makes it worth it. It really does. Like, if we were to come here and not have the shows we've been having, yeah, it would be a little bit of a drag, but it is like the energy is reciprocated, and it's like, it's like, oh, this is a territory, if you will, worth not like abandoning.
Yeah.
So
how has the experience been this time around, getting to do the like more intimate like Q&A explanation type of things?
Oh,
because that's something you don't normally get to do.
Right.
That's something that's like unique about Monolith.
Yep.
being able to do. How's that?
I love it. Coming up, it's always been pretty hard for me to like explain where the stories come from and like how they translate into now like life translates into the fiction and all that stuff. It's really taken me this far into my career to really kind of talk about that stuff. Because we do like comic conventions, right? And there's always this like idea like, hey, why don't we do a panel? And it's like, well, I don't really know if I have an hour or some odd of talking in me for something like that,
Okay.
But
It's
doing
easier for you to put it into song.
Yeah, absolutely. But now as I've gotten older and dare I say wiser, because that's not what I've gotten. But but I've become a little more comfortable in my skin, and it's fun for me to like kind of reminisce and bring up like whatever the formula is to writing a Coheed song and how that gets like picked apart and fed into the motive of some of the characters, and like it's kind of neat. Like I'm kind of becoming more a fan of what we do the older I get.
Okay,
You know what I mean? Like
able to
That's
have a bit of a
cool.
different perspective on it.
yeah, like I say sometimes, I don't listen to a whole lot of new music or music in general, but I do listen to Coheed because, I write these songs for me, or they're expressions of me. And like when I just feel like I'm becoming more and more of a fan of it.
It's a really cool thing.
So
And it doesn't sound sort of like it doesn't sound pretentious at all. It's kind of like shows a lot of growth in you as a person, being
yeah,
able to appreciate the art that you've created.
absolutely. I definitely don't mean it in a pretentious way. I just, I love what I do, and I'm lucky to do that. Like, there's that saying, right? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I really don't feel like I work at all. Like, it's just it's just creating, and I mean, I'm in my office, that office I did that interview with you fellas, and like every day, like morning, bam, I'm doing something, and it's never a chore.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
You know?
great.
Do you think being able to look back on, like, when we spoke last time, you said that so many of these like characters is your way of kind of verbalizing what you were going through at the time? Do you think now that you've no longer going through it, you can look back on it and appreciate it from the way you told the stories, and that's what's made it easy to now talk about, because it's like I'm no longer
Because
in
you're
that
not in
position,
it,
I can
yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, and I think it also what those stories are become clearer to me. Like looking back at them and seeing them as these journal entries into my life, and and as a whole going, oh wow, like that I can see the message I was truly trying to convey now at this age. And then it just makes it even more fun too, because I'm like, oh well, I did take that message and turn it into all of this.
Yeah.
And there's so many characters, and there's so many worlds, and we still haven't explored all the worlds of Heaven's Fence and the key work, and then just like the story of Axis that we're telling now with the new records, like, and how that sort of mirrors my life at this moment as a dad, and it's so cool. Like I'm so into it.
So essentially, what you're saying for all Coheed fans out there is you're never going to stop working, and there's going to be Coheed records until the day you die.
Well, it's funny, yes and no, because as I look at the new record that we put out, there is, as much as there is a lot of positive in it. When I finished that record, I kind of looked back and I thought, oh, like this almost plays out a little like crisis-ish, like there's a lot of like, what would life have been? Now as I get older, I'm like, well, I wonder, like, what would life have been if I didn't have the concept? And if I was comfortable back then in telling my story, like, what would the reception have been? How different would it have been? And, there's a lot of those sorts of questions, like going forward, like, do I want to continue to be the comic book rock guy?
Yeah.
I don't know, is there
other opportunities come forward to step into new territories, like a Netflix series?
Oh,
or
I mean, I'm
something?
all for that. I mean, we always try to, we've been trying to make something like that happen. I mean, we're not that aggressive, but
if it presents itself, there's
yeah, I mean,
cool.
I'm totally open, but we'll see.
I want to go back to what you said about, how things may have been received if you had done it differently. I want to go back and talk more specifically about full album and crowd reception. Now, you're no stranger to doing full albums. You guys have done this before.
Right.
But coming back somewhere after so long, is there any songs that you've played off the album that have completely blown you away in reception, that you didn't expect that song specifically to garner that sort of response from people in the crowd?
Yeah. Crossing the Frame is one. The Lying Lies of Miss Erica Court is another. These are songs that I just never thought as like to pull out
It's
like
individual entities.
yeah, or like just to pull out like a physical response from the audience. Like
Yeah,
yesterday was
interesting.
like there
What
was
do you
a
think it
lot
might
of
be
movement.
about them?
What's that?
What do you think it might be about those tracks that's done that?
I have no idea because I'm still I maybe it's the energy of the tune, maybe it's the lyrics. I don't know. It's just like the songs that I feel like are the lulls. You know, the obvious tunes like Wake Up and Suffering and Welcome Home are there, but you know, then there's all the glue that pulls that stuff together, and just you know, even the reception for Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, like which is just an odd tune. You know, I was like blown away by just how receptive every city has sort of been so far.
That's
I feel
really
like
cool.
we're in an age, we as people are at an age where nostalgia is playing such a huge part of people appreciating the bands they've kind of grown up with. Like the When We Were Young fest you guys just played.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching very jealously from over here of like all these bands that we grew up with playing these songs that we've loved and kind of helped shaped us. So I think we're getting a small taste of that here, and maybe that's part of it. Is this?
Oh, maybe
that shaped my taste of music. All that album, because in that era you listen to the full album.
You listen to the full album, yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah.
so maybe that's part of it. Is this like, oh no, like that song means something to me. I never thought I'd get to see that played in full anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a really cool thing that you've come out and given that opportunity to the fans through this. Maybe that's why it's like connecting, because they didn't think they'd get the chance for that.
And as we've said before, it makes picking a set list real easy.
Oh, it really does. It does.
Do you ever think of it like when you're creating the set list though? Does it ever sort of does it come down to what tune is going to serve the crowd best? Because obviously with the stories, you're going to have to go back through an entire world that you've created and chop and take little bits of a story out. Does it ever sort of, is it a conscious thing for you to try and make the story still work in a live setting, or does it become simply all about the song?
I think it becomes more about the collection of songs. It's only when we do these never enders that the story really kind of becomes front and center, you know? But like, for example, the last tour we did in the States, the Window of the Waking Mind tour, I mean, you know, we brought like the quintillion speaker with us, and we tried to really make the story, even though it wasn't the album front to back, tried to make it present in the visuals. But yeah,
that's a cool thing with like the way technology's gone to from a storytelling perspective. Like the production we're seeing from bands now versus 20 years ago, it's probably aided your vision for the band so much, because there's an actual vision for the band on stage now that you can get creative with. Is that like a fun thing to play with, or is it a little overwhelming of just adding another area to control?
I think it's fun to play with. You know, it just sometimes becomes very cost. The cost is like what becomes like the dictator, right? But I mean, I'm all for it. Like my dream is to play shows with the story behind it. Will that ever happen? I'm not entirely sure, but you know, if a Netflix thing did, you know.
Netflix, if you are watching this,
I could also 100% see you guys doing one of these never-ender runs as like almost like a musical theatre thing as well.
Yeah,
so
that would be fun.
Yeah.
There's an idea for you.
Yeah, no.
Look, I'm not going to fund it,
but you know, it's funny. It's like I worked on a musical for a small period of time. It wasn't related to COHEED. COHEED probably would have been the band to record the material for it, but I've never thought of the Amory Wars as that. But my wife, every once in a while, she brings up like the Afterman might be a good story for that, you know, stage. I mean, you know, I think the sky's kind of the limit with COHEED, with the story component. I mean, I'm open to any way of adapting this thing that I've created. So, you know, musical theater, animation, live action, you know, toys, whatever. I'm a fan of all of that stuff. So to even be able to talk to you guys about that hypothetical idea is exciting to me. If it never happens, that's fine. But like that we're even talking about that is like, you know, 16-year-old me is bugging out. You know?
I think it's a testament as well to not just the story, but the songwriting, that you've been able to create these worlds that connects with so many people that people can still be a fan of the band without following along the story.
Yeah.
It's just good songwriting. But the fact that there is this underlying thing that the more into the band you get, the more you can delve in and get more out of it. That's a really cool thing to have this far along that I guess you didn't go into with the intention of being like, we're going to make this deep. Like, it was just like, I want to express myself and be creative.
Right. Yeah. It was, I mean, all of this stemmed from being an insecure person, you know, being the guy in the front of the band that was just like, I don't want the attention, but I'm the guy that can do the job. So let me do what I can to get what I need out of this, and at the same time hide myself behind something so I don't feel like I'm being judged or scrutinized or any of that. It's like, you know, by what I'm saying. And
Do you still struggle with that at all now?
a little bit, but not too much. I mean, now it's, I think around the time of this record that we're playing right now, you know, that's when I started to like kind of pull back the curtain and see the story from two perspectives, one being the creators and the other being the creator's character, and like, you know, kind of letting the audience in on like, hey, this is all coming from someplace very real. It's not just spaceships and laser beams, you know what I mean? This is just my way of telling my story, my way of doing an autobiographical record, but you know, I just chose to manipulate it into a piece of science fiction.
It's such a cool thing. I have endless appreciation for it from like the perspective of like being so transparent and honest about what you're going through, but also making it so creative and entertaining to absorb that. Also, you guys are a phenomenal band to watch, like you perform, and that's makes it so much more.
I think that's
like,
why it works so well, because
Yeah.
the band is so fucking good. Like blowing smoke a bit here, but the band is so great. The songs are so great. I think that's why it works so well.
Oh, you guys are so nice.
Well, it's cheating. We're so excited to finally get like, and the fact that it's the final night, it's kind of cool to be able to like watch the last time for the shows. You've had all of the time to build up and get all the fuck ups out of the way, and then tonight we can just really go out with a bang, which is exciting. But
I want to ask, you know, obviously you've created a world full of really cool characters. Outside of your world, what has been some of the, like your most inspirational comic book characters, fictional characters that have sort of, I guess, paved the way for how you think about this sort of stuff and how you do things?
I think for me, one is I think Kurt Vonnegut was a big inspiration on me, because I knew as I was reading those books in high school that he would put himself in the story as a character named Kilgore Trout. And at least that was my understanding. And I always loved that idea. And that's kind of why Good Apollo became what it is, and why the titles of those records are so long, because he would do that. He would have like, you know, Slaughterhouse 5 or The Children's Crusade, you know, like these long titles. And so that's where I came up with that stuff. But so he would be a big influence on an idea. I also really liked clearly Star Wars, but the other one that I really loved as a kid was this movie called Krull.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a throwback.
Yeah.
am I too young?
It's 83.
Before I was born. So
Yeah. You know, so I mean, that one I really liked a lot, and I think that one influenced a lot of the architecture of the new Vaxis and of the two Vaxis stories that we put out, of Unheavenly Creatures and The Window of the Waking Mind. But
I've got some homework to do.
oh, it's cool. It's a nice fantasy. It's like, it's a science fiction fantasy, but it's like a medieval world. The planet is called Krull, and there's some cool stuff in there. There's a lot of questions that get left unanswered, like, but you know, when you're 1983, I was 5 years old. Like, I mean, it was wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
I was so into it, and still to this day, and pick things from it. And
How would you feel about a remake of it? You know, like they've done things like Dune and stuff like that.
Right.
Look, to be transparent, we could nerd out about like nerdy shit with you for hours. We don't have hours, but yeah, how do you feel about remakes and things like that?
I mean, I'm fine. I find them entertaining. Do I think Krull would? I think there was a rumor that J.J. Abrams was going to try to redo Krull.
He's gone through all the sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Star Trek.
And he'd ruin the ending.
I actually threw out, you know, we were talking about, you know, with Evil Ink Comics, my comic book imprint. the potential of like finding like B movies or properties that just kind of have been abandoned.
Yeah.
And you know, is that like an avenue we can go down and play with? And that was the first movie I was like, if Kroll's license is available, I'll take it. But I don't think it is. But
That's worth a shot.
So we gotta wait for the COHEED reimagining.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we won't hold you up any longer because you need some downtime before going on to Rip tonight. But we
Right.
appreciate you taking the time to hang out again.
Oh,
and
you guys
nerding
got
out
it.
with us. So,
Of course,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank
Big
you.
fans, as we said last time. Really appreciate you giving us some time.
Hell yeah! you
Really
got it,
fucking
dudes.
excited to watch this tonight. by the
Oh,
way.
right
no
on.
pressure.
Well, I hope we bring it because last night was.
yeah, I hope Sydney brings it. I feel like it's more pressure on us than you.
Yeah.
That's the crowd's perspective. So Sydney's got to step up.
Yeah, you could do the it's a bit of a gamble, but you could do the whole. I know it works for the stadium bands
Yeah.
because the
Melbourne
fans
was
are a bit
better
more
last
like,
night,
"Ooh."
yeah.
You do the whole like, oh, you guys have really got to lift if you want to beat Melbourne, and it can either be like, you know what, we do have to lift, or they'd be like, fuck you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's tough with Never Enders. We don't really talk. We try to do the record with some new embellishments. We try to do it front to back as the experience that you hear on the album.
Yeah.
We don't really break it up with like, you know, that's what kind of makes Never Ender like so special to COHEED. Because I've watched other bands like perform their albums, but then they take breaks and they communicate to the audience, and that's fine. That's probably that's the experience that they want to give. But for us, it's like we want to make that experience as much as conceptual as it
possible.
was.
Yeah,
It's also
put
not
it
a short
like
album.
it,
It's not like we've got an hour and a half we can play here. We just put as much as we can. You've got a limited amount of time to get it done.
Yeah.
But before we go, that reminds me, we have
Yeah.
to ask the big question. What is one album that you would love to see any band, perform front to back?
Alive or Dead, just one album front to back live.
Well, I did see Roger Waters do the Wall and Dark Side of the Moon
Nice.
in their entirety. So those
Wow.
that's up there. Floyd doing either of those records. So that was pretty close. Like an album front to back, maybe the Beatles, maybe like a Sgt. Pepper or Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Particularly one they never played live. It's just like the album.
Yeah.
Like, I actually never really thought about that, but having the Beatles half their collection is just on record.
Yeah.
That's a great call
Right.
to see that live.
Good answer. We'll accept it.
Well,
Right
yeah.
on.
Finish with that.
Well, thanks so much, Claudio.
Oh,
Pleasure.
you got it, fellas.
Cheers, dude.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank
All